Daniel Ricciardo has been sacked from the Visa Cash App RB F1 team. It's been a long time coming and a negative downward spiral for Daniel Ricciardo since he left Red Bull. If you're interested in what my thoughts are from both a technical perspective and a career decisioning perspective, then definitely keep watching. Now, in order to understand how we've got here, we need to give a little bit of context into Danny's career. I'm going to start at the Red Bull days because that's when everything was happy days. The car, the balance, the performance of that car, the handling was a natural fit for Daniel's driving style. And so he wasn't really required to dig himself out of situations or problem solve to the extent that we see later on in his career. Everything went sour at the 2018 Baku Grand Prix. He was behind Max and on a slightly different strategy, and he expected the team to say, hey Max, we've got Danny behind, you're on different strategies, please don't fight him. As it turns out, that's not what happened. Max defended into turn one, Daniel was behind him, bang, they had a big accident. And when Daniel reflected on that, he probably thought, you know what, this team is not like all surrounding me, like they're not all for me. They're giving too much preference to Max, even in situations when we're not meant to be racing because I'm on a totally different strategy. They're still not telling Max like what needs to be done. There was a few other issues in qualifying as well, which I'm not going to go into in Austria. And ultimately, it just ended really sour. And I don't think Daniel believed that in that car and those circumstances that he could be a world champion before Max. So the big decision was made and he left Red Bull for Renault. He went to Renault because it was a works team and they were on the up and he wanted to be like number one status. And he thought, you know what, if I'm ever going to be world champion, it needs to be like I need to be the number one in the team in a good works team and have the chance for the car and engine manufacturers to gel so that I can go forward. Now it was fairly successful initially. Daniel did pretty well, but then you know what? Daniel lost a bit of faith in that team and he had to change teams again. Now, look, we can reflect on all this Red Bull changing teams and Renault changing teams and say, was it the wrong move? And in hindsight, like we all make bad moves or we all have little regrets along the way where we chose the wrong path and we had to pivot and, you know, we kind of look silly. I don't really blame Daniel for that. He tried something and he was trying to make it work for himself. He felt stuck in the position he was in and he didn't know any other way to get out of it. It's at that point really where you should be seeking help and advice from coaches, mentors to say like, here's the deal, what should I do? Not necessarily have to be like sports coaches. These can be like career coaches. When you're in a job and you're not happy, do you stay or leave? That's ultimately what it was and what it came down to. So now where all the problems started was when he left Renault and then jumped into that McLaren seat. Now the McLaren, contrary to the Red Bull, was not a natural fit for his driving style. Daniel really had to work and chip away at it and try to dig himself out of these situations. And that's the differences between the best and greatest athletes and drivers in the world and those that are just good drivers or athletes. The best and the greatest, they always find a way. They always dig themselves out of trouble. They know how to problem solve. They know how to navigate situations and problems, and they always show up. Even on the bad days, they're there. On the good days, of course, they're going to be there. So technically, he just couldn't work it out, and this was the start of his downfall. Now, look, I don't have all of the data. I can't say for certain that, it was this. This is why Daniel and the McLaren didn't work. I haven't got all of the information to be able to draw those conclusions. It would take me years to filter through everything and then come up with a conclusion. What I can do though is investigate a little bit of the telemetry and then press up against some of those topics or areas required to be a quick driver and then say, well, maybe Daniel's lack of understanding here was causing this issue. And then he had a separate issue here. And then this wasn't quite working how I wanted, and then the mistakes, and then the confidence, and so on. So I'm going to list out 4 themes here, and we're going to tackle those 4 themes on the whiteboard together. So those themes are, number 1, minimum speeds and downforce. Daniel wasn't keeping this alive like Lando was. If you keep the minimum speed alive in Formula 1 car, then you keep the downforce alive. You keep the downforce alive, then you keep the grip alive. Daniel was kind of struggling to carry speed into corners and keep that downforce active in the middle of the corner. Number 2, I feel like he was a little bit wide of the grip in long corners of constant radius, where we see Lando taking shallower lines and hugging the inside and staying on the line where the grip is. Daniel was trying to do short corner technique, braking later, deeper, targeting a later apex, but unfortunately the car wasn't working out there. He couldn't get the rotation done quick enough. There was no grip out there on the track either, and he was running into problems in long corners of constant radius. Again, we're going to tackle this on the whiteboard together. Number 3, mistakes. Anytime you're frustrated or performing under pressure or performing to save your career, mistakes will creep in. We're going to have a look at one of those together as well. And number 4, confidence. I'm going to bring up some of Danny's telemetry. I'm going to highlight some areas to you where I can see a lack of confidence. Okay, so let's jump over to the whiteboard together and we're going to have a look at the first topic, speed and downforce. Okay, so hopefully you can see that on the screen in front of you. We've got downforce and speed as a topic, and we're going to be looking at the Suzuka S's here, and we're going to be looking at Netherlands turn 3, that long constant radius banked corner as well. So the reason I've picked these two as examples is because this is where the delta really creeps up. So he's lost anywhere between 1 and 2 tenths here. And over here, you can see he found some time on the way in, and he's actually lost a lot of time there. So he was up a tenth to going down a tenth. He's lost a total of 2 tenths in the middle of this corner as well. So he's lost about 1 to 2 tenths in this section, and we're going to look at it in the context of speed and downforce. So here you can see the speed trace. And what we have here is Daniel entering with a little bit more speed than Lando as we come through this section of racetrack. But what Lando does is carry all of that speed into this corner. That is the left-hander here. And then he maintains that speed advantage all the way into the apex. And that speed advantage that Lando carries in allows him to get on the throttle earlier and harder. You can see that here, and he maintains that speed advantage on the exit. Now look at the difference in the speed that they're going into this long right-hander of turn 6. There's a massive difference there. It's about 10 to 15 kilometers, and that is worth a ton of downforce. So what's happening here is Lando can carry that throttle in a lot more, and that means the speed that he can carry into that long right-hander is significantly more than Daniel. All of this area under here is to Lando's advantage because he's carrying more speed in the corners. He's also keeping downforce alive in the corners, which is giving him more grip in these S's. Now, if we have a look at turn 3 in Netherlands on the right, what you can see is Daniel's given the car a little bit of a stab in the short straight between turns 2 and 3 just over here. And then what that's meant is that it's pushed Daniel a little bit deeper into the corner, and he's had to spend more time rotating the car. What's happened here is that you can see the minimum speed for Daniel just down here has dropped out of the car, and the downforce has also fallen out of the car as well. So it takes him so much longer to get on the throttle. Lando's been able to keep a decent minimum speed, and boom, he's able to get on the throttle earlier and harder, which you can see over here. So that's the first example, and it really is carrying speed into the corner. That's what's keeping the downforce alive for Lando in these two examples. Our second theme is long corners of constant radius. We're going to have a look at Daniel's technique here, and in my opinion, he's a little bit wide of the apex, trying to do a short corner, like that is turn the steering wheel a little bit and then try to V the corner and then get on the throttle earlier. But the problem again is the minimum speed's dropping out of the car, and there's not so much grip all the way on the outside there. So we are going to have a look at second last corners here in Hungary, these two constant radius long corners through here. And then we're going to have a look at the constant radius corner in Netherlands, the one in the middle. And you can just see the difference here, like Daniel in white obviously carrying more speed in, but then, you know, doing a later rotation, and then he's under Lando, he's over Lando, he's under, he's over, he's under. So it's totally different to Lando. Lando's getting the braking done earlier, the rotation done earlier, and the throttle done earlier, and then he's into the next corner earlier. So what we can see in this example is the delta slowly starting to creep up in this fashion in Lando's favor. And that's because, in my opinion, he's closer to the inside of the corner, he's closer to the grip and closer to the curb, and the car is able to get on throttle earlier and harder. You can see that here, for example, here as well, and here. Now, if we look at the Netherlands example together, a similar sort of thing is happening. Daniel's going later, deeper, targeting a later apex in the corner, and he's going a little bit wider of where the grip is. Lando's braking earlier, getting the rotation done earlier and getting on throttle earlier, and crucially he's staying a little bit tighter to the curb, tighter to the inside where the grip is, and keeping the downforce active. So let's have a look at that together. You can see that Daniel keeps the throttle on for a little bit longer. You can see in white down the bottom there that he brakes later. You can see from the speed trace as well that Daniel's going way past Lando's braking point. But what Lando crucially does is get everything done a little bit earlier, and bang, he's the one on the throttle earlier. He's the one soaking up all of the delta thereafter in the exit of the corner. Let's take a look at my third example, which is just a straight mistake from Daniel in qualifying. You can see in Spa in Belgium, Ricciardo did a 46 dead and Lando did a 45.7, and there was some time lost here. So we're going to have a look at that, where that is. So they were fairly neutral coming into this corner, but then on the exit, you see there's delta of just over 3/4 of a tenth, nearly a tenth, probably a tenth by the time they get down to Pouin, lost in this corner. It's really interesting to have a look at the throttle trace that you can see here, because with Lando in orange, when he gets on throttle, he stays on throttle. Whereas when Daniel gets on throttle, he's obviously got a snap and he's had to get back out of the throttle and then get back on the throttle again. So you can see also in the speed trace at the top over here, Daniel was actually okay, but then where that mistake happened, he fell behind Lando. And like I say, that carried all of the way on to Pouin. Now, these sort of mistakes happen when you're not at one with the car. So I wanted to highlight that to you. And then what it does is sap your confidence. So let's talk about confidence together. We've got Bahrain's turn 9 and 10 here, and have a look at the speed trace. Everything looks the same here, but guess what? Lando's just broke a little bit later. All of the throttle looks exactly the same, but you can see that what Lando's done is just drive straight past Daniel's braking point and just brake a little bit later. And he's found here from 3/10 delta to 4/10 delta, that's 1/10 of a second that Lando's found just by braking later, guys. And again, that's the confidence piece. Lando being more confident on the brakes than Daniel into that decreasing radius corner of turns 9 and 10 in Bahrain. Now, fast forward to modern times, we've got this fast right-hander here in Netherlands. A similar sort of thing has happened, but this time on the throttle. You see Yuki and Daniel's comparison. Actually, Yuki out-qualifying with an 11.6 versus an 11.9. Have a look at the speed trace from the white Yuki. It's always above Daniel, and that's because he's got a shallower lift here in the middle of this fast, high-speed right-hander. Daniel, however, getting out of the throttle quite a lot, and then having to get back on the throttle. And that's where the damage has been done in the delta through this section of racetrack. Now, guys, this is an example of braking and downshifting into a decreasing radius corner versus your throttle input in a high speed corner against two totally different years. I can see that Daniel is not confident with the car. Now, the problem with the McLaren days is that in all of these different examples of not carrying enough downforce, of being wide of the grip or making mistakes and not having the confidence to do the job, it kind of plays on you, and there's self-doubt that creeps in as well. You've got to remember he took like the first part of 2023 off on the sidelines when he was the reserve driver for Red Bull, and he must be thinking like, am I still good enough? Do I still have it? What's it going to be like when I get back in the car again? Am I still going to be able to compete? Am I going to have a drive? What do I need to do to impress? Like, all of these things must have been going through his head. So it's very difficult to perform under pressure as an athlete when that is playing on your mind. As I always say, driver coaches and mentors, that's what we're here for. We talk through the situation. We're able to explain the telemetry as you see on the whiteboard before you. And it's just the best way of getting some help when you really, really need it. Whilst performance engineers are able to see this on the telemetry, it's very difficult for them to provide driving solutions to the driver. And that's why I always say the driver coach is the best port of call. Whenever you're in trouble, you absolutely need someone to pull you out of these situations. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Daniel is a good Formula One driver? Do you think he deserves to be kicked out? Do you agree with my analysis here on the whiteboard? Or do you have another comment or opinion that you'd like to share? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.